Fourth Wing, The Hating Game, Kiss Quotient, My Dark Vanessa, Happy Place, A Court of Thorns and Roses. All of these are recently published books that have been hyped on social media. They are often on Booktok, the area of TikTok that tends to promote certain books. They're also all books that I recently read and enjoyed. What we're seeing today is a really interesting phenomenon, the way that social media is influencing which books we read and also just the fact that we are reading. And in this way, this Booktok thing we have going on, it's inspiring a lot of people to read, which is fantastic on one hand, but on the other, we're neglecting classics in favor of these modern books. I think recent books are unique in how fast-paced they are, not necessarily how short. There are a lot of long modern books, but fast-paced is in there are a lot of very short chapters and a cliffhanger at the end of each one. There's a lot of graphic detail to these novels, sexually graphic content, in not every book, but it's a common theme across the books that are on Booktok. So the ones that we're promoting most are those that tend to have, the fast-paced content and the very sexual content. And like I said, I've read a lot of Booktok books. I've enjoyed a lot of them, and I think that they're really great reads and they have a ton of value. But we are reading these at the expense of classic literature. This is the age-old question, why read classic literature? And it can create a little bit of snobbery, pretentiousness, and that's definitely not the approach I want to go with this, and that's why I wanted to emphasize from the start that there are definitely a lot of really great things about the modern books that we've been elevating and putting on a pedestal above others lately. Stats are showing that people are reading less and less. Imagine if you went into an art museum and there are a ton of different wings, one for each century of art, and imagine you only go into the contemporary art room and you look at and appreciate all the abstract art and you never wander into any of the other wings. And this is what's happening with reading, I think. Not everyone likes reading. It's okay if you don't like reading, but when you look at society as a whole and you see the declining statistics, I think that's when it begins to matter. What even is classic literature? It's generally a book that has received a lot of praise, a lot of acclaim, and it has some sort of longevity to it. So it's been respected for a long period of time, and that's why we also have these modern classics, which are books that have that same high acclaim, but they just haven't really been around long enough to kind of establish that status as a classic book. With this in mind, you're not going to like every single classic that you pick up. Even books by the same author, you might love one, hate another. If you start off with a couple of books and you're unable to finish them, don't take that as a sign that you're not meant for classic literature, because you might have just not picked up the right books for you. So how to read more classic literature? How do you enjoy it? I'm almost always going to be the person who says go to the library, but I would say buy your classic books because they're often long, not always, but often they're long. Also, if you have to return the book within 2 weeks, that's a lot of pressure and you have to read it very quickly, and then that makes it less fun, less enjoyable. That being said, we have so many copies of classics already in circulation around the world. Buy it secondhand, don't buy it new. Also, when you buy your books, you can annotate them. Underlining, highlighting, annotating, it's what allows you to engage with a book. And if you don't engage with a classic, classics are meant to be engaged with. I think that the author wants to spark discourse. I'd really recommend buying purely so that you can write in your book as well. I'm a big fan of writing in my books. Oh yeah, as for movie adaptations are a really great way to appreciate classics more because they can confirm or reaffirm your interpretation of it. But if there is a movie that's well received, I'd recommend watching it afterwards, and it can be kind of fun. It's like a reward after, have a movie night, and you get to kind of celebrate your conclusion of the book. Experiment with different authors. There are so many different styles. It's kind of a misnomer in a way to say classics as a genre, which is why on my Goodreads account I don't actually have a classics bookshelf, because that's not even a category. It's everything. Figure out which style you like, and you have to keep in mind that classics itself is not really a genre. You can't lump them all together. Find the genres within classics that you like, and that'll make them more enjoyable rather than telling yourself that classics itself is a genre. Join a book club. This is key to enjoying books more in general, let alone classic literature. If you have someone to discuss the book with, and also just people to motivate you to know that they're depending on you to read it, it holds you accountable, and then it's really fun to talk about it with people afterwards. Set a reading challenge for yourself. This can be either you want to read a certain number of books per year, or you want to read 10 books that are set in a certain country, or you want to challenge yourself to read one book of every genre, something like that. Just challenging yourself is a really great way to force yourself is a terrible term because that makes it sound like it's not fun. It's a great way to inspire yourself to continue reading. Branch out beyond the high school classics. We all hear about Of Mice and Men in 1984, Fahrenheit 451, which actually I still have not yet read, To Kill a Mockingbird, especially Fitzgerald. I'm blanking on the name. Why am I blanking on the name? Great Gatsby. Ugh! I didn't have to read it in high school, so I read it not too long ago and I hated it. It was awful. It was boring. I'm sorry, it was boring. Maybe it was because I didn't take it, maybe I didn't do it in a class, so I didn't have like a teacher to explain it to me. I didn't like it. So anyway, a lot of these books that we have to read for school, they really focus on Western white male books. And there's so many beyond that. So really explore classics from other countries, people of color, women, LGBTQ community, like all these other classics that have been written beyond what is on the typical high school at least the American high school reading list. Make a vocab list. I notice sometimes if I'm reading a classic book, there are a lot of words I don't understand. And if I just skim over them, I think that some of the meaning gets lost on me. It's better if I take the time to make sure that I actually understand what I'm reading. And then I like to add words to my vocabulary list, so it becomes kind of fun looking for the language and appreciating the language even more of the book you're reading. This is also just important in general for our speech, because I think that 21st century in general, we have this degradation of language. We don't have very nuanced language, and we rely on the same words as well as a lot of filler words. I do it all the time. That's why you see so many jump cuts in these YouTube videos, because I misspeak or I'll use filler words. I have long pauses between what I'm saying because I can't think of the words that I need. And if you go back and read journals from 50 years ago, 100 years ago, anytime before that, the variety of language, it was so much richer. We've lost a lot of that. We rely on the same words over and over again. And just creating these vocabulary lists can help you to be more aware of that language that's being used. Listen to more audiobooks. It's so hard, we're so busy these days to actually sit down, ignore all the things you have to do, and read. When you're busy with other tasks, commuting, showering, doing your laundry, doing your dishes, you can listen to books at the same time, and then you don't have to worry about actually carving out that time to read. I think that we all should carve out that time to read, but I don't have time to carve time out of sometimes, so that can be a really great alternative as well. I think Audible's pretty expensive. I don't know, I've never had it before. There are free audiobooks on YouTube that are classics, which is why I'd also recommend listening to audiobooks for classics, because it's a free way you can access books. If you search, for example, like Persuasion by Jane Austen, there's going to be an audiobook on YouTube. I don't even have to check right now because I know it is definitely going to be there. General advice also with reading classics: footnotes I'll read occasionally if something intrigues me, but don't bother yourself with checking every single footnote if it is a classic book with a lot of footnotes, because that can just make it exhausting. But it can be interesting to get that more historical context as well. So do that if it interests you, skip it if you want. But one thing is, like, never read the introduction of classic books if you haven't read them as often. There's often an introduction, and it's written by like another author or a scholar, and they will spoil that book. So don't read the introduction. I go back and I read the introduction after I've finished the classic book. Prologues, of course, are fine because that's by the author themselves, but when it's like a different author writing the introduction, skip it. Lastly, the way that you can enjoy classics more is to actually seek out help reading them. Classics are not easy. I struggle with them. I've taken so many English classes in my life, and like I said, I majored in creative writing, and I still will struggle with classics. They're different language from what we use today. It's not natural. It's not intrinsic to what we've grown up with to hear the way that they speak in these books. And the themes can be very complex. They can be very subtle, and these authors aren't going to be very explicit with themes. So I'd really, really recommend reading a chapter, and then if you feel like you didn't fully understand it, go to SparkNotes, go to Cliff Notes, and read analysis of chapter 1. You can see what you understood, what you didn't understand, and then also there are these analyses that go beyond just the summary of the chapter itself. It's kind of like a substitute English teacher. You get that extra layer of information that an English teacher would tell you that you would never really quite get on your own. If you struggled with classics in the past, I hope that this is helpful for you, and I hope that you fall in love with them as much as I love them. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.